Yeah, I understand. We have a couple of other persons who are supposed to join. Is that correct?
I don't believe so. Mr. Carroll received the invitations, but I haven't heard from him. And I think the group is primarily you, Miss Page, Mr. Peterson, and Mr. Carroll.
And did you send an invite to Mr. Addison?
I did not. Was I supposed to add him to the group?
I had mentioned adding him, but we can do that for the next time to make sure he had some good comments.
I'll double check it, but I don't believe I included him, but I'll make sure he's included for the next one.
No worry. Okay, so then let's go on and get underway. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for making time to join this work group that we all volunteered for. But we'll take that up with the chair at another time. I think everybody here knows everyone, so introductions are not necessary, so we can move on to the statement regarding the electronic meeting or the virtual meeting announcement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a fully virtual meeting, and we are using the Zoom webinar platform. So as you know, anyone who is attending from the public can submit questions and comments through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. At this point, we have staff attending as members of the meeting, but we do not have anyone from the public joined us at this date.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parsons, for that. And will you need to do a roll call, Ms. Firestone, Janice?
No, I don't think that's necessary.
I don't either, but I just wanted to double check because that's on my agenda here. I think it's more standard in terms of our larger meetings. So what I'd like to do is really go to what you have here, Chet, is the overview of the work group, our purpose and charge. And so as you record it from the minutes, and then we can all chime in there.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's see if I can share my screen.
And while you're looking for that, I mean, this came out of the discussion about the last transportation forum and the desire to have there be some strategic thinking and intentionality as to whether or not we would want to continue the forum. And if we continue the forum, then what would be the nature, the scope, the outreach, what would be the communication plan and a template thereof that could be used for it, et cetera. There were some great comments that occurred during the meeting, and I'm seeing, Mr. Parson, this is what you have for us.
Yes, that's correct. As you all remember, the January 6th regular meeting of the TPO had a recap, essentially, of the November forum on the agenda, and there was a great discussion, as the chair just mentioned. And Mr. Williams, just to go quickly through the bulleted list here, this is essentially a summary of what I heard on the recording when I went back and through and listened to it. And he really wanted to kind of drill down to what is it that TPO members want to accomplish with the forum. And there were a handful of comments, great discussion that took place. First, just to go through quickly, the reality is that getting citizens to attend is going to be difficult. People want to see the results, but they don't really care how it gets there. It also may not be the best use of time for staff. The forum provides an opportunity to highlight activities. Average citizens will most likely not be interested, but it can be used to highlight activities that may not be otherwise discussed. People want to see connectivity and how one project opens opportunity for other projects and how it relates to the community, really focusing on the big picture. The question about who the target audience for the forum is. If it is the public, the location, the suggestion was the location should be closer to downtown with better access. And this is where the straw poll was held to see who was willing to ride their bike to the forum or take public transit. And I believe the chair was not interested in riding his bike. Media, somebody else noted that the media decided it wasn't important enough to come and that there should be a more coordinated effort from the jurisdictions to assist in the content. There were a couple examples that were provided, like providing a drone video to show project progress, having each individual jurisdiction also live stream the forum on their channels at the same time, so that it gets spread more in a more wider focus than just through the TPO and Plan RVA. Looking at the big picture and how it is communicated. And I think that's probably one of the comments that really drove the impetus for this subcommittee to be created. Purpose is not to have just the regular members show up. We will not be able to get the general public, but we could work on getting attendance from Chamber of Commerce, Greater Richmond Partnership, and other partner organizations. We need to put forth excitement about this. The forum should give people who attend something they didn't know about. We could try polling the members and the public to see what is important. And then the last note was that social media doesn't always work in rural jurisdictions because of a lack of access. So there need to be other ways to share this forum and provide information about it to everybody who lives within the region. And I'll be happy to share this document out with everybody here.
Yes, if you would, that would be really helpful. Okay, so we have those comments and we were at the meeting before. I want to make sure at least that we're all on the same page in terms of, no pun intended, Ms. Page, all on the same sheet in terms of the importance of having a transportation forum. For me, I think it is important and it will be invaluable to have a transportation forum with all of our partners now, with CVTA, with TPO, certainly Plan RVA, all of the efforts around multimodal, et cetera. But before we start out, I want to make sure that we all are kind of in agreement in terms of that. Canova, Patricia?
Absolutely. And when you mention all the groups, I'm wondering if it should be, depending on what we determine, if it should be a forum or if it would be an annual joint meeting, or just to get all of, even if it was done internally for just us, then maybe just us would be all of the different platforms that you just mentioned, Dr. Newbell, and all of us coming together for one joint meeting, and so that everybody knows what everybody's doing and that type thing, if we decide not to go with the traditional form.
Could it be both and? An opportunity for that kind of exchange, but at the same time, engagement of the broader community and all of the efforts that are going on? Just a question.
I think that yes, ma'am. I think that it could be. Absolutely.
Let me chime in a little bit there too.
Okay.
I think I agree that it's important, but us communicating with each other through the different groups. Now, there's a number of us that are on multiple groups, so we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. But there are a lot of people who are not on all of the different groups. We got some people who are on Plan RVA, who are not on the TPO, or not working with the CVTA. I know, I believe all three of us are pretty much working with all of these groups. And but others do need a little bit more information of what's going on in the other groups. So a joint meeting in that respect, I think, is helpful. But I'm not too sure that that's a forum, because I think when we're talking about the forum, though, we're trying to get out our information out to the rest of the community.
Exactly.
And so I think we might need both.
That's why I was saying both and, yes. Canova, I'm sorry, I
I'm
was
just
agreeing with
afraid.
you. Yes,
Yeah,
with you
No
and Ms.
problem. I
Page,
just-
really. So,
okay. We got this delay with the with the Zoom meetings, but I think it's very important, but it's I think one of the first things that was spoken of, and Chet had it in his things, is how do we make this something exciting that people want to know about? The reality is, I don't think we're ever going to get the everyday person on the street to want to come see one of our forums. But the people who are actively involved in our communities in other ways, I think we can get them excited.
Okay.
But they may not be involved in the transportation side, but if they're involved in their communities, they can get excited. But we all have plenty of people in our communities who are just not involved at all until it affects them. We're probably not going to get them to a forum.
okay.
But the ones that are, go ahead.
No, I was going to summarize once you were done. I'm sorry, I thought you had stopped.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so if I'm hearing correctly, it sounds like the thought is to possibly have an annual meeting of all the groups as one strategy, and then a forum. So it's both and. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think for this work group, then it would be important to make sure we have representation. And I know we have Chet and we have Martha, and we have a CVTA member who's supposed to be here, correct?
I'm on CBT.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was someone else
So
assigned as
is
well.
There's
Patricia.
Ms. Page.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Carroll, who is the
That's who
vice
I was
chair.
thinking. Yes, I
Uh-huh.
thought there was someone else who'd been assigned. So yes, so then we have CBTA, we have RTPO. I'm an alternate on CBTA. And then we have Plan RVA. So I think we have representation from across the entities to be able to really inform both a forum as well as an annual transportation, a transportation forum as well as an annual meeting. Then let's talk a bit about that. And there's a section here in terms of group discussion. I think you've touched a bit on kind of the prior focus or historical focus of the forum. You were saying that it really did not touch as broadly, other than those who are more intimately involved in the various entities. But let's follow the line of discussion here. Historical focus of the forum, and I'm going to just go based on what we have here. And any comments, thoughts, feedback?
I mean, in terms of how the forum got started, that was before my time. I was hoping to learn a little bit today
Okay.
to get a better understanding from the staff
Sure.
side why we started this in the first place, and if we're still following those same directives, or if it's changed over time.
Well, I'm certainly going to rely on my two colleagues as well as Ms. Heater, who's on. The one forum I did attend, I thought that it was at Main Street Station. We had our elected representative. It was very helpful because it gave us some sense of possible funding that might become available and how we might prepare ourselves for that. But yes, Canova and Patricia, Martha.
Yeah, Dr. Newell, I'll just add, actually, I think Mr. Peterson, it was your year as chair of the TPO that was my first forum up in the Harley Davidson Center at Lewistown Road. And as I recall, the selection of that site, just like Main Street Station, were picked to sort of be able to highlight either an issue or a project or kind of a feature in the jurisdiction that was helpful or beneficial to kind of get all the members familiar with maybe what was happening on the ground in the host community. And then the content was really built around maybe pressing topics of the time. I remember also when Steve Ellswick was the chair and we had it at Pocahontas Park, you all might remember we had representatives from HR TAC come and talk a little bit more about the agenda included a lot more about understanding what a regional transportation authority might look and feel like. So my history also is limited to the last 5 years or so. And the forum, as I think Mr. Williams had shared in the meeting in January, this has been going on for far before my time too. My understanding is that it was really a time to be able to kind of take a step back from the day-to-day or month-to-month business of the TPO and be able to dive a little bit deeper into some of the emerging issues in transportation, call in maybe some interesting experts. So part educational for the membership of the TPO, part show and tell, if you will, of exciting initiatives or needs in the community. And then also, I think an ability to kind of showcase in a bit of a different format to the public the conversation and dialogue that happens among our transportation leaders. So again, the only other form that is coming to my mind is the year that Mrs. O'Bannon was the chair. So Chet, that would have been a couple months before you started, and we had that at Libby Mill Library. And I remember that session was really focused on kind of technology and transportation, if you all remember that. So each year it's had a really different kind of slant. And Mrs. Page, I think we didn't have the forum during your year because of the pandemic. So apologies to you for not getting that event out in New Kent.
We had we didn't, that was the year I chaired is the year we were at the train station at Main Street Station.
Okay.
Previously we didn't because we really didn't have a location that was large enough for all of us to be able to meet at.
I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mr. Peterson. Oh.
I will add it. I'll add into this a little bit. I've been involved with 10 years. I think the forum had just started before I got on board. Miss Page could tell you a lot. Like I said, at that time, it was going around to the different jurisdictions, basically based on who was chair of TPO. And I know when we had it, I was looking at it, again, introducing people to Hanover, and picked Harley Davidson. First of all, they had a great large meeting room, and it's transportation oriented. We don't often think of the motorcycles, but other than Miss Page, but it's a great event. And I think that's when I first met Carlos Brown. That was when he had just come on board with the CTB. But and he was one of our key speakers on that. I think what I recall in the earlier ones, we always went beyond the organizations that were the TPO and what have you. DRPT, what's going on with this could be a great topic to draw people up from other side. But what's going on with the rail situation between going through Virginia? Things of this type we deal with them on a sort of micro scale with TPO, but the macro scale could be a big draw if we bring it. When we were at the train station, we had, like I said, we had people from outside of our organizations bringing ideas and new issues to the people to consider. I think we had some ideas presented in that one that some people really loved and some people really didn't like at all. But that's good. We need to hear, the things that are available. But if we're just talking about what we're doing in our own organizations, then that's just back to having a joint meeting.
Yeah, I agree with you, Canova. For me, when I think about a transportation forum, I'm talking about all forms, whether it's bike, bus, scoot, walk, plane, train, boat, motorcycle, everything in terms of how we move about within our geographic footprints and how all of that connects. And so, and having people understand how it connects and how it connects in a way that really facilitates movement across our region, utilizing these various sources and where that connective tissue is, whether it's fall line or Capitol Trail or whatever the case may be. And then, you know, certainly encouraging the utilization thereof. So I think about it from that macro level as well when I think about a transportation forum. And then how do we work collaboratively? What resources are there to be brought to bear across our entire regional footprint to make those connections? All of that. So I agree.
You bring up something, a good example. We're going through a good example right now, something we don't really focus on that much, but is very important, is we're not just talking about moving people. We're talking also about moving goods. And we're sitting here in a supply situation right now that is all very transportation oriented.
It is.
And it's not about moving people, but it's getting stuff to the people. And
I mean,
that
the trucking.
I think that would draw a lot of people into a discussion if you had some depth on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe what we can do today is first get agreement. We agree that we would like to see an annual transportation forum and that it would be more focused macro across all the various forms of transportation, if that's what you think, and that we should have also an annual meeting that brings all of the various entities together that are working to share, to talk about how we can collaborate, leverage resources, et cetera. With those, could we get some agreement, at least A, we want to bring back recommendation on forum, and B, annual meeting and kind of the general goal for those things in the future?
Dr. Newble, can I ask for some clarification for the joint meeting? Is that something that, are we talking about the three organizations? Or are we talking about bigger than that? I thought
I think
heard
I
some
was
discussion
hearing
earlier.
bigger than that. I think I was hearing bigger than that, but Canova and Patricia.
I think so. I think we have to make sure that the people that we work with, DRPT, the GRTC, all these folks that are involved in transportation in our region, it would be good to have a joint meeting at some point during the year, just to fill each other in on what we're all doing.
Sure.
And also, Canova, it might be as the General Assembly comes up to talk about, is there legislation that we would all like to support that would facilitate greater transportation options across our region that we might all coalesce around? I mean, I just offer that as, I'm not saying it has to be that, but ways that we can work collaboratively to facilitate even more expansion of transportation options across our regional footprint. I just throw that out there as a thought.
Well, it's a good idea, but I think that also ties into when do we have this meeting?
The forum.
Because
Yes.
that sort of puts us into something in late summer.
Yes, it
or
would.
early fall.
Yes.
If we want to try and get something on the next legislative agenda.
It would, and
Well,
I'm not, go on, I'm sorry.
I think that would actually work out well in terms of timing, because that would also allow us to look at our new fiscal year and all the things that are programmed for the TPO and plan our VA to be focused on. I think that late summer, early fall would actually work a lot better than trying to do something in November.
Okay, and would work for the annual meeting or for the forum?
The annual meeting.
Okay.
I don't think anything other than tradition has said that the forum has to be a certain time of year either. I think I would say it's all kind of up in the air.
Yeah. What do you all think? Go on.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Just from a staff perspective, thinking about resources and everything, I think the governor's transportation conference historically has been in what Chet, that's kind of that November, early December timeframe. So it might be we might want to sort of be thoughtful about if it is a late summer, early fall joint meeting across all of the different regional and state agencies, and then the governor's transportation conference at the tail end of the calendar year. Maybe a forum could be, I think, to Chet's point, flexible depending on opportunities, but maybe think about something in the, I don't know what you call that period, this late spring, kind of time frame, maybe just to kind of think about balancing things out. Chet, I don't know if there's a transportation month, or I know things like Dump the Pump and some of the other kind of more mode specific transportation weeks and things like that tend to happen in the springtime, but I don't have all of those committed to memory right now.
Yeah, I don't know when the right time would be, but I have lots of questions about staffing and commitment and logistics and how we would pull this off. I know that during the spring is our busiest time of year with all of our sub-allocated grant programs and trying to award things, and Smart Scale is in March typically. So I would want to be aware of that as we think about any recommendations, just to make sure
and
that
I want us to be thoughtful, because the other piece of this is the execution, and part of the execution is being vigilant about staff, resourcing, all of the logistics that would go into this, the communication plan and strategy, and not solely for me looking at our staffing, but also at the staffing of our regional partners and how, so it's really being thoughtful about both of these. So I want to go back to, so we're talking about the possibility, recommending a forum that we're saying maybe this is tentative, late spring, and to be determined once we go through logistics, what it would take to stand up such a thing. We might change the time frame. And then an annual meeting. Any sense of when an annual meeting might? And Martha, have we had such a thing in the past, or Chet?
Well, I think the joint meeting that and the time frame that Mr. Peterson raised makes sense in terms of unveiling our work program and the focus areas for the year once the fiscal year starts. So that late summer, early fall time frame.
Okay, I had the wrong time.
For the joint meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say, again, what I know about the history of this is Plan RVA is not, and has not in my tenure, been engaged in the legislative priority process. We dropped effectively that program prior to my coming. So I think the other benefit of that timeframe that Chet and Mr. Peterson are suggesting is that it would give the local governments and their coordination of their legislative programs kind of the time. And so I just want to be careful that we worked for you all, but I do know that a regional legislative agenda has been difficult for our organization to carry out through the General Assembly session. So.
Okay, so
if I might add into this, first of all, I would suggest if we're going to look at fall, we look at September. August, I'm afraid there's going to be too many folks still on vacation. We're not going to get the participation. September is a good month. It's about as early as we can get it and have everybody be available to go to work on it.
Yeah, that's when we start ours as well.
In the spring, I would suggest not going too late in the spring, again, for very similar reasons. Maybe mid-March to mid-April for time frame, if we were going to have a forum. Making sure we don't get involved with spring breaks and things of that type.
Exactly.
We've got major knows. But a forum where you're getting people out to see things, this is sort of the dead time of year in some ways, and there's that you can get some interest during that time frame. Well, and it wouldn't conflict with the governor.
That's right. And looking at the weather, I mean, that could play a part in it. If we want the general public to be interested, then maybe we would do something where there would be tours or some type of activity where people could see in person the infrastructure that's being put in place.
I think that someone mentioned that during the discussion, that the opportunity to really experience and to see and understand the connectivity of all of these parts and pieces. So I absolutely agree. Canova, so.
Madam Chair, that may have been Mr. Carroll, and he is with us now. So.
Oh, okay.
I want to recognize that.
Hello, Mr. Carroll.
Good afternoon. Sorry I'm late. I was tied up in another meeting as usual.
No worry, no worry. We're done now. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist.
Timing
Okay.
was perfect. It's
So-
good that you solved all the problems for us already.
Yeah. Mr. Peterson took care of us. But let me just say what we've been talking about, Kevin, is the idea of possibly having a forum somewhere mid-March, mid-April, and an annual meeting that would occur more like in September, where we're beginning to, I think most of us in our areas are beginning to pull together our legislative packets, et cetera, in preparation to go over to the General Assembly. It would afford us the opportunity to have, to share across the various entities that are involved and engaged around transportation, to see if there is any joint opportunity for collaborative legislative items, or at least we all know what we are working on and supporting as it goes, we get ready for the next General Assembly session. So I just want to be sure that pretty much that would be at least a start in terms of a recommendation, a forum roughly, again, mid-March, mid-April, and an annual meeting that would be across the various transportation agencies somewhere in September. Is that, folks feel comfortable with that recommendation?
I think it sounds great.
Okay, so now the real work begins.
Let
Yes,
me, Madam Chair, if I can ask the question,
sure.
probably of Chad, when we talk about mid-March, how does that affect staff with deadlines for, I know this year, I think it's like the 22nd or 23rd, it's the deadline for Smart Scale. Does that impact staff? Is it better to do it before the deadline or after the deadline?
Thank you, Ms. Page. That's a great question. So Smart Scale is every other year, but yes, March, mid-March is when pre-applications open for Smart Scale.
Okay.
So that's a very busy time. We also have RSTP and CMAQ awards that need to be moved through the process around the same time. That is every year. I think it would be better if, as we've kind of discussed, if we could look at more of an April timeframe. And I think that would work out better with the weather too. So that we can kind of get everyone, including all of you here, everybody's looking at Smart Scale. It's not just the TPO. So we can get into that process. And then I'm going to probably be leaning a lot on your staff to help with this forum too. So having everybody a little bit more freed up with Smart Scale at that point, at least every other year, would be helpful.
Thank you, because that's where I wanted to go. The other piece is, while we might have recommendations for these two items, then overlaying with the logistics, what does that mean in terms of, to your point, what else is going on for TPO, for Plan RVA? Does this mesh? And if it doesn't, then what would the adjustment be? But I hear that, and thank you, Ms. Bates, that more like April would be a timeline for the forum, and then September, a time frame for the annual meeting.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So, and I'm not sure and we, can map out the goals for each of these, but also then to talk about logistics, time commitments, what would be the communication strategy as we would move these things forward. So that's the deep dive work from my perspective. I certainly wish we were in person. We could do the whiteboard and just work ourselves straight through all of this, but not at the moment. So I'd like to talk about, so first we have agreement on the two items. Second, rough time frames. And then the third thing is to begin to and articulate, to lay out what would that mean time-wise, staff, commitment, and especially communication, from internal, external, and some of the concerns that were raised about the last transportation forum that we can take as lessons learned in terms of putting together our template and prototype for communication on anything moving forward. So tell me how you would like to proceed. Given that we have these two things, do we want to now go away, come back within a week and have each work through some component pieces that we can bring for discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd say that I think your approach is sound, at least from the staff perspective. We can certainly put together some material with our opinions on each of these. I would like to raise a couple of the comments from the January meeting.
Yes.
And that's regarding, I think, the overall format of the forum itself. Is it still the intent that it rotates, or should it be organized to maximize the accessibility and the ability for everyday citizens to attend if it is an in-person event? So I think that's kind of a big question.
That's a decision point, I think,
Yes.
that we should put on the table. I think sometimes rotation might be because we get introduced to, on the other hand, there are specific projects that have been supported by the TPO that we might want to showcase. I mean, so I think that's a decision point that we can make based on what's going on in the organizations and in the region. So, but I think that we can put that on. How do we determine, is it simple, not simple, but is it rotational, or is it related to a specific initiative that we're wanting to showcase, or something else?
Cynthia, I think you've got a good point. I think if we want to have a good forum, we need to let the forum dictate the location to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of the rotation that has historically been part of it can still be part of it, in the sense that if New Kent is sitting in the chair seat, we can have a special portion of the forum where New Kent can showcase some of the stuff from theirs, regardless of where we actually have it.
Or we could have the annual meeting there.
That could be the case. Use the annual meeting for that purpose, maybe instead of the forum. But we still want to let each jurisdiction have an opportunity to showcase some of the things that are going on. But the bigger topic of whatever the forum is for any one year should probably dictate where we're having the forum, rather than who's the chair.
Right. And so, Chat, if we could list that set of options, and to Mr. Peterson's point, so that those will be decision points, rotation, specific initiatives we want to expect, and any other items that may be on top for that year. Maybe, I don't know what, but that should be a decision point as well.
Yes.
So,
we'll have it.
Dr. Newbill,
Yes.
At the risk of kind of getting a little bit in the weeds, I almost am curious if it might be worth consideration to suggest, also as part of the recommendations back, is that thinking about the timing that we're talking about, a September annual joint meeting, perhaps it could be the sort of under the leadership of the vice chairs of the various bodies, at least for CVTA, the TPO, and the TAC. And I say that because those are the rising chairs, if you will. And so they would be the presiding chairs when September came around. But I think the planning for those meetings to be effective really needs to start really at that transition point. And so having it be part of everyone's radar that as chair, that one of those early meetings in the fiscal year will be this joint annual meeting. And so we want to engage the vice chair or rising chair, whatever we think it is, to be involved in that planning. That I will say from a staff perspective would be very helpful. It's difficult to plan events early in the fiscal year when the chair just starts thinking about it in August.
Okay.
The other part that I would suggest around that is similarly, when we think about this more publicly facing annual forum in the April timeframe, I think it's worthwhile for this committee to really think about, part from a marketing perspective, but part from a workload perspective, who's the host? And is it jointly hosted, within the staff personnel that here, Plan RVA staff in support of the TPO or the CVTA or what have you? Or is it really kind of jointly hosted across those partners? Because GRTC and RMTA and DRPT, they all have staff resources that we don't have the ability to obligate. And so I think depending on how you're thinking about who the host, what that billing looks like, we'd need to probably approach them and almost have a broader brainstorming session once the TPO had its definition of what it was hoping for.
Martha, thank you, because I don't see this. I see this as that kind of collaborative effort across the entities and across the staffs of the jurisdictions. Okay, but that clarity on the front end, to your point, will be it'll be critical, because otherwise the execution would not occur successfully.
And I think we're probably all familiar with when a leader from a local government takes on a leadership role at a regional body or a state, state something. I think it generally comes with even a national something. It generally comes with the territory that then the staff for that jurisdiction probably tend to carry a bit more of the load. So it may be worthwhile to kind of be thoughtful about that. If the chair rotation is naturally, as part of the governance structure evolving, it may be that, Powhatan County is the chair of the TPO and Chesterfield County is the chair of Plan RVA, because that's who's there now, and Henrico County is as the chair of the CVTA. Those three local governments know that they're probably going to be on tap to sort of provide a bit more support in that year for these events. And then as it rotates around, maybe that's how we start to ease that pressure on our local government partners, because while I'm super protective of our resources, I'm also keenly aware that all of these regional projects draw heavily on the local government staff, and they have primary jobs as well.
Absolutely. I agree. Great point.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Peterson.
I think this all is well and good, but we got to remember we're a subcommittee of the TPO. At this point in time, this is a TPO project, and that we're inviting the others to. Hopefully, the others would be willing to step up and be co-sponsors. But the TPO at this point, that's who we are right now, today, as this group is concerned.
I agree, Mr. Peterson, but I think we want to make the case that we are working collaboratively, and so yes, the lead
Absolutely.
TPO, but that in order for this to be successful and as we work together, that it will be those three entities. So yes, to your point and to Martha's, no one has unlimited staff capacity to execute, but if we believe these strategies are critical, then making the commitment to work collaboratively to stand them up is the only way they'll be successful. So thank you, Mr.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd make a suggestion that'll make Chet and Martha very happy.
Okay.
Because we're talking about the time frame. I would say one of the first things we take back to the TPO is we will not have a forum this year, but we will have a joint meeting in the fall. And the next forum will be in 2023.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you would put that up, Chat, you're seeming a little too excited about that. Mr. Peterson, I would concur with you. The annual meeting is something new and will take a lot of effort to coordinate as well. And you know, where it's going to be held, what the focus and all of that. I would concur that that would be part of the recommendation, that we will do both, but like you said, annual meeting this year, forum next year. Ms. Page, what do you think? Mr. Carroll?
I'm in total agreement with that. I think that one of my asks the other day at the meeting was to invite our new Secretary of Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I think to have the Secretary of Transportation at a joint meeting instead of TPO inviting them, then CVTA to still have him to come. And I think that this gives us more time to plan, as well as it has planted the seed and staff of what's coming, and not, oh my God, it's already March. How are we going to do this?
Exactly.
You know, so I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Peterson and Dr. Newbill.
Yeah, I'm in agreement as well. And plus it cues us up, I think, for working to build relationship with the new leadership in the General Assembly, and to have the secretary there and to begin to get clarity about their positions on things, but also for them to hear from us, the various entities, and how, you know, we can work towards what hopefully is all of our vision around transportation, multimodal in our region. And certainly he will broadly be focused the Commonwealth, but we want to tie in with the Commonwealth too, so it's okay.
Absolutely.
But I think both of you make excellent points there. Mr. Carroll, are you able to tie in with us at this time? Any thoughts?
Yes, I've been listening intently. I like everything that I'm hearing. I do think that, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I do think that, you know, I think one of the things that no matter who is in charge or who's running it or who's putting it together, you know, certainly we need to be more focused on how we're getting the message out if we actually want to get community involvement. And part of the things I think we can do with that, I think I spoke to at the last meeting, which is, you know, we need to be doing radio interviews ahead of time, TV interviews ahead of time, having all of our jurisdictions pushing it out on social media. And, you know, I mean, I do believe I could get us on certainly John Reed show, Jeff Katz show in the afternoon, probably without a doubt. But then also, you know, it does, you know, this, I believe promo videos, and certainly we have the capability in Chesterfield to do them, of what's actually going on at some of these projects that are being done, some aerial shots with the drones, or even perhaps one of the representatives whose district it is actually out there on site, you know, doing a short interview about what the project means to the community. And then, you know, that's those are a message we can push out ahead of time, and then as be part of the presentation that actually happens on either at the joint meeting or at the forum itself. So just some ideas I think that we need to try and make sure we put in place. I'll certainly offer up our communications and media staff to do it. You know, we even have a podcast capability in Chesterfield that we could offer up. That it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're from. If you want to come in and be interviewed on the podcast, and then we can push that out as well. And that's, you know, I did one the other day. It was like a 25-minute podcast, and then we pushed it out, and it's really a great informational opportunity. So
I think those are great, Mr. Carroll, and would like us to have that list of communication strategies, including everything you have, all the social media sites, plus plastering on the bus for those who don't have sites, you know, or don't have that technology may be a challenge. But I think those are some key ones. And so we talked about having, as a part of the logistical plan around communication, creating that template. What would it be? Press releases, podcasts, as you said, interviews, down the site, drones. Again, for some who may not have access to postings that'll be on buses, on any number of other places, but to be thoughtful in ensuring that we communicate broadly and in ways that really people are accessible to folks. So those are perfect. And thank you for volunteering.
I gotta do something.
You know,
I
with
gotta
this
do
whole
something.
committee, you have to be careful about, you know, between the chair, and you just have to be careful about saying anything. So thank you. You're on record on helping us to frame that whole communication strategy in a solid template. And I dare say that kind of strategy and template could be utilized for just about any event. How would you, you know, communicate across the, so thank you for that. With that then, so
Carol.
next, yes.
Well, I just want to say, I know that Mr. Carroll, I also want to second, you know, the volunteering, but I know Joe Casey is pulling his hair out, if you heard about that.
But that's okay. They have a little bit of time before, you know, so we'll get
We're
there.
all part of the big team together, and we got to pull our weight as well. And certainly that's something that I know that our people are, we have the technology and the capability for. So why not offer it up? I think it benefits all of us.
I agree.
Oh, don't take me too serious.
So, Joe, we'd love to help.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll, and we accept. And so Chet and Martha, so I think at least another work session where we really dig in and lay out timelines, component, you know, for each of these things, communication strategy. And I think especially there was an emphasis on communication as a learning from the last forum to make sure that we have the kind of outreach that ensures the success and broad, diverse and inclusive engagement of folks. If we could, I don't know, is a week too soon?
Well, I was thinking a little bit about, I would imagine that you want to have a report back to the full body.
We do.
On March 2nd, or I think it's
yes,
March 2nd.
I would like to, even if it's not, at least preliminarily in terms of where we are. So that's why I'm pressing around time.
So I might ask, just sort of to pull back a second for some opportunities. We will be convening for the first time really since the pandemic, the regional public information officers and communicators group. So those are the people that are in your localities dedicated to either social media, citizen engagement, media relations, those kinds of things. And we're going to be convening that group, if I'm not mistaken, on March 2nd, that afternoon of your next TPO meeting. We also, at the March 10th full commission meeting, will be having the presentation about the brand recommendations. And while this is much more specific, I think it's all kind of in the same vein of how do we start improving our kind of a unified communication strategy amongst the local governments and the entities that Plan RBA supports, as well as to the public. So those things, I don't think that your timeline needs to be impeded at all, but those are things that are happening that it's, from my perspective, very great timing that all of these conversations are all happening at once. But I was thinking that it might be beneficial to, once we have a straw man of what your expectations as or ideas as a subcommittee might be for these two annual events, to be able to go and talk with the technical teams in the jurisdiction. So the technical advisory committee, I think, you know, our transportation experts at the local level and our communications experts, and ask them for some guidance on how they think that communications plan and the content development and all that kind of thing could work for them, and then come back to this working group. So I wonder if there could be just a step inserted to really be able to create some consultation with those two groups to be able to brainstorm. So Chad, I don't know if what the TAC meeting agendas look like over the next couple months, but it might be worthwhile to get those folks input into this process.
So Martha, I would really like to have input from broadly. I like what you've said. At the same time, I feel an absolute charge to report back to at the next meeting of the full body, at least our progress to date. And then that could be a strategy that we will also interface with those entities to get additional feedback. But for us to get absolute clarity and agreement about A, we want to do a forum, B, we're thinking in April of 23, we want to do an annual meeting. We're thinking in September 22, some of the questions that need to be answered. And then all of what you just said, I think will be invaluable in terms of forming the, just the logistics around communication and a lot of what Mr. Carroll talked about. So I guess I'm looking for both hands. I really do want to have us update. So if we could have another conversation with this, if there's any more firming up, I never want to meet, but at least to be able to take a sound basic recommendation back to the body to consider, and then to talk about, just as you have, how we will move forward to get more input, because we'll have enough time. If the body agrees to only go with the annual meeting for this year, we have time to get feedback from the TAC and the groups that you've mentioned, which would be excellent.
Well, if I could add to that, Madam Chair, what I will do is I'll direct staff to put together a document that'll cover the type of resources that we can make available for that communications piece. We'll have something prepared for that within a week or two.
Okay, and that could be part of what, Martha, when we're having that conversation with the other representatives in terms of communication, so they get some sense of and can possibly respond. Are these some of the things that they could also provide, and how that comes together? Your thoughts?
That would be great.
All right, so Chet, you were, before I jumped in there, I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask Janice to look at the calendar. If with this small group, it might make just as much sense to see if everybody has a free day in the next week. I think it would make sense before we report back on the 3rd.
Yeah, to
have more of an outline of all the
Yes.
thoughts. We'll summarize what we discussed today, but I think there's a couple
Perfect.
things that we need to dive into a little bit deeper to give some substance back to the full board.
Great. And I do want to capture everyone's comments, Mr. Carroll's, certainly Martha's, and Mr. Peterson and Ms. Page in this, so that we can have more of it is a draft outline that we would be at least take to them, and then how we would move forward. That would be great. So Janice will reach out to us to try to corral us. Are we thinking?
Do Friday mornings are Friday mornings typically okay if we don't have a CBTA meeting?
Early mornings are good for me. I don't know about everybody else.
I can do the early morning next Friday if necessary, but it has to be early morning. I do mind book that in the afternoon.
Yeah,
or I'd have to go to Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, Monday or Tuesday of the following week?
I'm free on those days.
So should we allow for, let's see, how about the 21st?
Only thing for me is
It's what day?
I think we're closed that day, I believe.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I
That's right.
seldom do holiday. So, okay, what about the 22nd?
Is that a Friday?
No, the 22nd is a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Is that too soon, or, I mean, is
that should be enough time, and that will give us time to still get the agenda out.
Okay, so what time on the 22nd? Are we saying morning, early morning? Is it 8 o'clock? Ms. Page?
I'm good. Is that what?
I'm good. I'm good anytime that day.
So 8, 9?
I have a 9. I might be able to reschedule that, but I can do an 8 or I can do a 10.
Okay, how about an 8?
That'll work.
That works for us.
Or,
We gonna do Zoom again?
well, I guess so. I'm, I'm yeah, I guess. Yes, that's probably most convenient for everybody.
At 8 o'clock it is.
Okay, so 8 o'clock on the 22nd.
Don't worry, we're regular clothes. We won't be in our PJs. 8 o'clock will work.
Okay, thank you.
We might be able to figure out a whiteboard function on this thing too. So
That would
might
be
help.
great.
All right, so they're gonna send out another invitation, I'm assuming, for the calendars with all the information to participate.
yes, we will do
That's
that.
correct.
That works perfect.
Well, thank you. I was trying to keep this. We did good. We're just 2 minutes over to an hour. So as a first conversation.
That's because I missed the first half.
Oh, is that what it is, Mr. Carroll? Okay. All right. So we're putting 8 o'clock, but everybody else, we're starting at 7:30. All right. So yeah.
May I add one thing for that? As we go forward, I think it's going to be important to address the full TPO. I think the charge that was given this committee was to figure out the big picture going forward.
Yes.
We need to be careful and not think that our charge is to actually organize every one of these from going forward.
That's good.
They have to decide whether that's going to be another committee or who's going to be involved in that.
Right.
And I could see us very easily just being moved right into that if we're not careful.
Mr. Peterson, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for reminding me of that. So we don't accept our tasks, we will have completed shortly. So
He's already getting us it out. Good man.
yes. Chat. Oh, go on, Mr. Carroll. I'm sorry.
I don't think I'm going to be let out, but that's okay.
Yeah, I suspect most of us will be volunteered again, but at any rate, voluntold, I think is what it is. Chat, Martha, anything else for us?
Yeah, we'll try and get the summary of today's meeting and outline and send that out with the invitation for the 22nd.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both, Chad and Martha, for joining us, and certainly Mr. Peterson, Mr. Carroll, Ms. Page, thank you. Ms. Firestone for coordinating us all, and there's someone else on, but I don't know who that is. Rashonda, thank you as well.
Yeah, thank you. This is very exciting. And Rashonda, just so you all know, is our community engagement manager. She started with us at the end of November.
Okay, hello. I could just see the name, but I never, so welcome. Just want to say thank you.
So she supports the whole range of the programs across Plan RVA, but certainly will be active in this particular set of discussion. So this was great for her to be able to hear your all's conversation today.
Thank you. And again, really appreciate it. We stayed almost to an hour, and have a great weekend, everyone. And
everyone have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
Oh yes, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very
much. Valentine's
and
Day.
a special thank you to you, Cynthia.
Oh, please. It's thank you. It's my pleasure and my honor. So thank you. Talk to you all soon.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.